Council, I'd like to call this committee the whole meeting for January 15, 2026 to order with adoption of the agenda. I just want to amend the agenda just briefly for when we go to in camera to add section G, confidentiality, to the agenda. Someone want to make the motion for me, please? Councilor Lucio, seconded by Councilor Orlando. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Going on to adoption of the minutes of the committee of the whole for December 11th. Somebody want to make that motion for me, please? Councilor Lucio, seconded by Councilor Palmer. All in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, just a brief announcement. Business licenses are due. Just want to make sure that people are being able to get in and pay for their business licenses, and thanks to those who've already got that complete. We're going to move on to
just for clarification, it's February 2nd.
I believe, well, no, I thought it was January 15th.
It's
Ms.
today.
Moore, is it?
Through the chair, they are due February 2nd.
Oh, February.
26th. This is a Monday. Typically it's January 31st, but that falls on a Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Correct, February 2nd. Thank you for that. For some reason, I thought it was today. That's why I brought it up. Maybe that's just my wife's way of saying get mine paid, and I said I already did that in December. All right. Going on to discussion papers, update on the status of the Revelstoke Fire Inspection Services. Chief Drosy, you want to take the podium?
Spot. Your Worship and Council, thank you for the opportunity to address the topic. I don't have a presentation to show you, so if Council wishes, just highlight some of the key points from the discussion paper.
Okay.
And happy to take your questions following that. So Revelstoke's fire inspection program faces a significant compliance gap. Approximately 363 properties of 870 approximate inspectable properties are overdue for inspections by 5 years or more. While 233 properties were inspected last year, and although the repeat inspections average 12 months, many buildings remain overdue, so they haven't had a touch between that 1 year to 5 year period. What we're concerned about is legislative context here. This is in relation to the Fire Safety Act, which replaces the Fire Services Act, and that was in 2024. And so the Fire Safety Act modernizes safety inspections on risk-based compliance rather than annual repeat or frequency. I think the importance here is that municipalities are legislatively required to carry out two functions in the municipality. One is fire safety inspection, and one is fire cause investigations. Everything else that the municipality provides to the city in the way of fire protection is your option, which was established in the community many years ago, and so you're continuing up to today. The new Fire Safety Act, well, it's a couple years old now, requires that the municipalities proactively monitor high-risk occupancies. So buildings that are open to the public. Regional districts a little bit different. They follow a complaints-based inspection process. So why this matters today? The New Year's Eve Crans-Montana fire in Switzerland took 40 lives, injured over 119 at last count. And officials of that community admitted that periodic fire inspections had not been conducted between 2020 and 2025 of a particular business, the bar. And that illustrated the consequences of lapses in fire inspections and what can happen when there's combustible interior finishes in uninspected properties. So our current policy, which is FD4, Frequency Fire Safety Inspections, was last modified in 2005. So it is old, but current as of the Fire Services Act, which was replaced by the Fire Safety Act in 2024. That document was linked. I don't think we really need to go into that in great detail. However, it does set the inspection frequencies for similar establishments to the Crans Montana, which is basically annual inspections based on occupancy class. In this case, we're talking about licensed beverage establishments, restaurants, and community halls and such. So we're talking about occupancy classifications where large numbers of people congregate in a public building. With the change to the risk-based compliance monitoring, this frequency of inspections, annual, biannual, or twice yearly, is no longer required under the Fire Safety Act. And so that's why I wanted to reference the current and existing policy and further recommendations that we'll be making here today to update it, update the policy to meet the current Fire Safety Act recommendations. So let's talk a little bit about the Fire Safety Act. It requires a risk-based compliance monitoring system and provides the authority to the community, the council, in the way of tools such as orders, penalties, and authority to evacuate premises. To prioritize high-risk buildings, such as the assembly occupancies that we just talked about a little bit. And one of the things that I'll bring to council's attention is that last year we had the council approve the appointment of the fire inspector and the fire investigators. So that was a key component of coming up to speed with the new Fire Safety Act. So council has taken steps to implement the requirements of the new Fire Safety Act. I think I'll take a moment at this point to sort of explain that although the old 2005 version of the frequency of fire inspections policy is not non-compliant with the new Fire Safety Act, as it essentially puts a frequency in, establishes a frequency that we're expected to meet, which is not less than the risk-based compliance monitoring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I have that repeated? I didn't quite follow.
So I'll just get Chief Torosy just to explain it just a little bit more so that we are in compliance and over compliant, are we not? But I'll let you explain it.
Through your worship, to Councillor Palmer. So the current policy, the FT4, establishes an annual, biannual, or twice yearly frequency of inspections, which could be in excess of that frequency expected by the risk-based compliance monitoring.
Okay, I understand. So if I may, through the chair, so you're saying that policy, if we were following it, we might be doing well over and above what we actually need to do. It's not saying that we are doing over and above because we're not following that policy.
Through your worship, back to Councillor Palmer, that is correct. The opening statement of the number of properties that have not been inspected in over 5 years, it echoes what you're saying, is that even though the policy is there with an established frequency of inspections, we have not been able to achieve those. Let's see. So some of the operational improvements that I've looked at that will help us get to the risk-based compliance monitoring through the new Fire Safety Act is a tiered prioritization. Oh, that was a bad word to use. A tiered prioritization using the draft occupancy frequency fire inspection prioritization policy to schedule the monitoring inspections based on life safety risk. So there's a draft policy that I'd like to speak to a little bit later. Another improvement that we could do is a backlog list. So launching a backlog initiative as soon as possible, targeting those tier 1, which would be the like primary, the restaurants, hospitals, healthcare, seniors living, schools, daycares, and other large residential and assembly occupancies. And then tier 2, which would be your retail, your small multi, unit residential and industrial hazards. As we move forward into the 2026 year, our 5-year financial plan included the appointment of captains within the fire department. And so a pre-fire planning process is planned with an implementation of a fire company pre-fire planning process, which will help identify concerns that can then be brought back to the fire inspector for a follow-up. And that would increase our ability for that risk monitoring compliance process. Another improvement is to look at the fire inspector's focus, trying to reserve the code enforcement complex systems for the municipal fire inspector using company level visits with its educational hazard checks and familiarity. I'll note that the fire company inspections or pre-fire planning are limited to being able to write enforcement order actions or corrective actions for those non-conforming issues that they do find. Their job would be to bring them back to the fire inspector for a review and follow-up. Additional would be plans review and construction fire safety. This is a challenging part here. The fire inspector's workload includes the plans referrals. We take a look at the proposed buildings and renovations that planning and building is working on to provide comment. Those are quite intensive. We want to strengthen the plan checking and especially construction fire safety plans for those developments as well. So really, ultimately what this is all about is staff are seeking direction from council to adopt and implement a risk-based fire inspection prioritization schedule consistent with the Fire Safety Act, authorize the development of a comprehensive backlog reduction plan, beginning with those high-risk occupancies, and to provide guidance on resourcing strategies, including temporary surge capacity, long-term staffing, solutions, all with the goal to achieve that legislative compliance and mitigate future life safety risks. These actions directly support council's strategic priorities for public safety, risk management, and a sustainable service delivery. And if we receive that direction, staff would report back with further information. And I'll pause here, Your Worship, if council has any questions or if you'd like to go to the policy.
Okay. Any questions from council at this point? Councilor Lucien.
Thank you, Marcel. Question through to the chief. How many fire inspections, if we were to tier this, would be required yearly for tier 1 and tier 2?
For Your Worship, that is one number that I wasn't able to establish based on the actual occupancies in Revelstoke, just with the short time frame from becoming aware of this report request to today.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do a follow-up report or include those in the follow-up report.
That would be great. How many staff do you have doing fire inspections?
1.
And how many inspections can you estimate that he can accomplish or that they can accomplish within a year?
Through Your Worship, I think I would refer back to the annual reports for the last 5 years. Is showing roughly in the 200 to 250, 300 if we're including the re-inspection. So if the fire inspector goes and finds some deficiencies on his inspection, they'll have to make a return trip. So those numbers would include that on the high end. On the low end, 250, something like that.
And is that individual responsible for looking over the development plans for comments, or is that also included with your staff within the fire department?
Through Your Worship, that is correct. The fire inspector does the primary referrals for codes, separations, and specifically for variances and things like that. I look at more of an operational side of things, and we both provide comments on that. So it's just the two of us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilor Steveners.
Yeah, thanks so much for the presentation. I find it's like almost overly complex for what it's think to be is a relatively simple solution. You previously said that we only have one person doing the inspections, but how many people do you have on the floor from, say, 7 to 3, Monday through Friday? Because you don't just have one fire inspector, right? You do have at least one other firefighter. Is that not correct?
Through your worship, that is somewhat correct. So we have almost accomplished a 2 firefighters on duty 24/7. The challenges are, of course, they have other responsibilities that they have to take care of. As we move to the captains, we'd like to see that crew going out into the community during business hours, doing those pre-fire plans to increase our effectiveness when there is a fire or other emergency at those facilities.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I do appreciate that explanation. And I think what I kind of struggle with is why are we waiting for the allotment of captains to ensure that that happens? If we have 2 guys on the floor right now, I haven't seen any call statistics that says we're so busy that in a 24-hour period, you can't go out and complete at least one inspection, even if it's just a simple, yearly, like if it's, inspections can vary from relatively simple, walk-through renewal process to, complex new development. So why can't we just assign the relatively simple renewal inspection processes to 2 guys on the floor? And if there's 1 per shift, and then the fire inspector, that eases his workload and it increases his ability to follow up on potential violations or concerns that are brought to him by the firefighters. I don't necessarily think that this problem needs to wait until the allotment of fire captains on the floor. And I think honestly, from a firefighter perspective, to me, it's a pride in my job and knowing my first due and my first due responsibilities and ensuring that I know where I'm not sure. I know as a rookie, if you had asked me, where's the fire department connection for Begbie View Elementary, I'd be able to say, it's on this quadrant of the building. I know where the nearest hydrant is. I know what that hydrant can flow. Same with, City Hall, same with whatever high risk occupancies. We should be establishing that standard, and I don't know if we should be waiting until we have fire captains on the floor for that standard to be adopted.
Your worship, I could expand and provide more context and detail, but it would require going in camera.
Okay, so for now. You okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
So, Councilor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Souls. I'm a little bit concerned about the volume of stuff that we're doing in camera that gets in sort of a fuzzy area. But anyway, first of all, thank you very much to the chief, the report. I appreciate having it in front of us. It certainly isn't what I was hoping to hear. Mayor Souls, I did do a post. Well, I sent an email through council, and then I did do a social media post. I think probably most people have read that, and I'd like to just give a little bit of context to that. The Trans-Montana fire, it happened New Year's. Initially, probably like most news events, it was there a one-day thing. Forget about it. But I did have a person from the public say, well, could this happen? Could this happen in Revelstoke? And suggesting that some inspections weren't being done, as we now know is the case. And I don't know how similar it is to Trans-Montana, but our situation, but that's a question. Could this have happened here? And that's sort of the fear. Anyway, I did do a little bit of digging. There's multiple criminal charges, criminal investigations that are happening now in Trans-Montana. There was I looked at some of the stuff. The mayor, had a little post. I suggest you look at it because it's understated. I think he would do a much better job than what he did. And then, of course, that whole thing about going on social media, go down squirrel holes. And I came across the live streaming of one of the victims, 14-year-old. His name was Arthur Brodar. And so I saw this live streaming. Arthur was a soccer player, 14 years old. A number of his teammates were at that funeral. Some were not, because they were also victims of that fire. And it really started to person. I think you can identify with that, Mayor Souls, really start to, okay, this is getting too close to the heart. And I was thinking on that, on that post, whether to do it, and I chose to do it because it just seems that we're complacent on a number of areas within local government. And we've put a lot of resources. We've had, the fire report. We've had a couple of reports in the last couple of years. We've made some changes. We've done a lot more funding. I think the inspector position was created some 2 years ago, I believe. And then, so here we are today, and it seems to me what happened in Crans, Montana could have happened here. And so we put a lot of resources to put fires out. Wouldn't it have been much better if that fire never happened in the first place? And I think in Crans, Montana, that is absolutely the case, that if the inspections were being done, we're seeing there was multiple levels of failures, but it's going up the ladder and landing on council's lap. So that's just a little bit of context, and I appreciate the questions from the other council members. Okay, how many can we get done? And the fire chief will lead us on a phased approach. But it seems like this is actually an emergency to stop that emergency from happening, and that's kind of the approach. Let's stop those fires. That tragedy. 40 people killed, 15 injured, some very, very seriously. The carnage, the firefighters, they go in and applaud the actions of our firefighters going into these atrocious situations. And I'm sure those people are now marked for life. That can't in the emergency service.
You're correct.
And they saw stuff that they should see even in those kind of positions. And so it seems to me that there's an urgency in addressing this somewhat bureaucratic process to get this done. And that's sort of the context. So I look forward to seeing how we sort of mitigate that. I definitely appreciate that we're discussing it now. It would have been nice if it had done in the past, but let's move forward and find a solution. And I might have some more questions as we move through on how we can accelerate this. Thank you.
Councilor Lim.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. Thanks to the Chief Jose for preparing the report in response to concerns. I appreciate it. My question is focused on, we have two potential recommendations to council here in the report. And my question is focused on, within the spectrum of how many we can achieve, listening to the urge to increase that, as much as possible to address the backlog that we have. Can we achieve that by adopting this resolution today? And then, how do we, if it is council's desire to increase the number of inspections within the range possible, how do we get to that higher level?
Through your worship, there are a number of thoughts and recommendations to how we can move forward. And Councillor Lucio mentioned, I'd asked a question about how many were in each sort of category. I guess you call them occupancy classification. And so that will require a deeper dive into what is built up in Revelstoke, how many properties classify under the various levels of risk.
Mhm. Okay,
And so that would be the first step.
Okay.
What do we have? What is required to achieve that? And, you know, to further on Councillor Palmer's comments, you know, some of the causes of the Trans-Montana fire that should have been caught by the fire inspector were not, for various reasons. And the common issue, and I think could happen in any city, is we need to be able to get in and look at, especially when there's renovations, because, you know, between the time we do our one inspection or a follow-up inspection, if people are making, you know, owners and operators are making changes and renovations, which is what happened here, the owner bought some cheap do-it-yourself soundproofing foam, stuck it to the ceiling, that's what caught fire. That should have been caught as a fire inspection flag for correction. So those sorts of things didn't happen. And this is where we really need to look at how do we get into these in a reasonable time frame, and also have follow-up orders for corrections and remediation of issues that are found. So it is going to take a bit of a deeper dive to be able to provide a better answer. I'm sorry I can't provide a definitive answer today. There's a lot of information to go through, and in order to make it effective and something that we can achieve within either current staffing or increased staffing.
thank you, sir.
You have a follow-up, Councillor Stiggers and Councillor Palmer.
I just have a question based out of curiosity, excuse me. Is it current practice to be walking through sites that are under construction to address any concerns during that time? Like, I know previously in my old career, if there was new construction going up, we would have taken the time to walk through it and to at least have a look, you know, how's it being constructed? What kind of joists are being used? Are they, you know, laminated I-beams, which pose a concern to firefighters? Are they the staples for the trusses? What, you know, what's the construction? What's the occupancy? Where are the rooms? How are the rooms orientated? Is that current practice in Revelstoke, or is that something that's also falling by the wayside?
Through your worship, Councillor Stifflanders, it is common practice for the fire crews to do walkthroughs at various stages of construction. The fire inspector is probably later in the construction phase as they're starting to look at the sprinkler systems or alarm systems and that sort of thing. So yes, but not from the fire inspector's perspective.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it's more of a familiarity walkthrough than an inspection walkthrough, right? It's more, as a firefighter, we're curious as to how things are built and put together, and, you know, I mean, the buildings kill us, right? So let's take that personal initiative and go out there and see how they're constructed.
So, and exactly as you say, Councillor, the fire crew is out there, you know, they're looking at these new constructions on their own, going around and assessing those and looking at how they're going to respond, whether it's lightweight construction or glue mounts or that's it.
Great, thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's through to the fire chief. I've got a couple questions and then a comment. And maybe I'll do them all because they might sort of tie together. So the one question is, notwithstanding union stuff or whatever, how many of our staff potentially are, you know, could do inspections, like have that training to do that inspections, including yourself? And then on a routine for a typical fire and safety inspector that's going through, say, downtown, and there's routine, not talking ones that have serious deficiencies that take a lot of time, but just sort of the routine ones, identifying that, you know, for the most part, they're up to date. How many could they go through? Like if somebody was going downtown, how many inspections could potentially be done in an 8-hour day or whatever the length of a day is? And then maybe jumping a little bit ahead, because you're going to go in some the duration, but one of the things that I'm seeing is, okay, we got this you know, it'd be nice if we had the program in place so that you got a program there for inspections, and we'll get into that later on. But there's this very, very serious, or appears to me, very, very serious deficiency. So how do we get to that baseline as fast as possible? And is there a way of doing that, putting all hands on deck, you know, putting aside sort of the nice things to do if we recognize that as a priority? If council said, okay, no, this is a priority, let's get up to that baseline. And then, because that's what I would like to see, let's get to that baseline and then get a good program moving ahead. And then is there other ways to actually get to that, you know, through contracted services, so that we get to a baseline and then make sure we're doing things right moving ahead. I won't be satisfied if it's going to take years for us to get to a baseline. I don't think the public will. So that's kind of a plethora of questions, and I don't know if you can answer some of those. Thank you, Mayor Souls.
Through
You
your
can
worship.
remember them.
Certainly to council.
I haven't repeated these.
Maybe for me.
So I think I can begin to address some of that context there. As I mentioned earlier, the part of the deficiency analysis is, you know, and I mentioned the 363 properties at the beginning. Which one of those are high priorities? Which one are, you know, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? If they're tier 3, then they're not a high risk. And I think that's where digging deeper into the built stock of Revelstoke, or what exists, what are the buildings, what are the businesses being operated in those occupancies, that will help us determine what it's going to take to get to the baseline. And I'm sorry, I don't have the details on what those 363 properties are made up of. And you know, for example, just for argument's sake, let's say it's a food truck. That would be a different risk level than a bar that uses pyrotechnics inside on a regular nightly event. So yes, there's obviously going to be some work to be done to establish and define what that baseline is, so that as we work through this and learn how we can prioritize either with the staffing that we got, or increase staffing, or like you say, contract services. How many can be achieved in a day? It depends on the size of the structure, whether it's good housekeeping or not, as the facility or the fire protection components of that facility being well maintained. Are they up to speed? Is it a short-term rental versus a 24-unit hotel? So there are going to be differences in how much you can achieve. I will add that every inspection has a lot of paperwork, and the more deficiencies that are located, the more paperwork that is required, because of the infractions and the code violations that need to be written up, and the orders need to be. So it's variable. I can't tell you that we can do 8 in a day because it's not realistic. I can tell you we could probably do 8 SDRs up at McKenzie Village in a day, and then, you know, 3 or 4 hours of follow-up paperwork for those 8. So I don't know that really satisfies your question. It's the best I can do. Within our staffing level, I have 1 fire inspector who is fully qualified as a fire inspector 2. I have 1 staff member, firefighter, who has the basic training, which is not enough to be out there inspecting complex occupancies and going through the fire code and building code and writing orders on that. Myself, I'm in the same level. I'm basic training. That's all I have. And I have a lot of responsibilities on top that would make it very difficult for me to do the rest of my job well if I was out doing fire inspections as well. So there are some opportunities, and with some direction from council, I think I can bring back a significant plan to achieve a much better base monitoring program that will reduce those fire risks.
Follow-up, Councilor?
Thank you, through the chair, on that. appreciate the comments. As an ex-bureaucrat, I hear a lot of bureaucratic processes, and I understand the need of that. At the same time, when I look at Trans-Montana, if we get paralyzed to that, I don't know if they were paralyzed, what their reasons are, that'll be coming out later. But it was 5 years, and we have many that are 5 years. And I think any firefighter, when you look at what happened there, that just a quick walkthrough would have said, oh, this is a death trap, better flag that's compared to going through, City Hall's probably just, fine, or, going through, not fine, well, that's scary. That's very scary. We're not, anyway, those, getting that view, because if it takes us years to even just discover that there's some pub that's got some little hideaway somewhere, just because we didn't do a walkthrough, that's my concern. And so I'm looking and say, okay, how do we accelerate it? Yeah, so I think the fire chief will have some ideas on that. Yeah.
Through your worship, if I may just make a comment, some of the things that have, in relation to, I'm being very careful not to name any names or identify any businesses.
That's why I chose City Hall.
Very, very clear reasons.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to put ourselves in a liability or create concern in the community. That's specifically why I reference that we don't know yet which of the properties that haven't been touched are a low risk, and I'm going to take a look at that and be able to provide more information on that subsequently.
So, we have a motion on the table to kind of help you move forward, and we'll go to recommendation to council. But, as we go forward and look at things, there's nothing that we can't do without political will and money. And so if it comes down to, your suggestion is we need to do contracted services to bring things up, or I don't know if there is contracted services. I don't know how you can do that sort of stuff, but, thinking about those things, we need to understand exactly what the costs are and how we can mitigate things so that all of us can sleep at night, our community can sleep at night. In my line of work, I know exactly what our firefighters have faced in the past and how that's played on them. And some of us should never have seen the things that we've seen. However, when we take on that job, to do it correctly and fulsomely. Chief, thanks for, being honest. These are our deficiencies. This is what our strengths are. And let's move forward and look at this from, this is a base point, and we move on and go from there. I've had the pleasure of having the fire inspector inspect my building many times over my tenure, and I look at some of the things that things change, and okay, we need to do this now, we need to do that now, that we never did need to do before because fire regulations change, or you look at that sort of thing. It wasn't something that they missed previously, it was things that changed, and you look at that for whatever the reason was. And I'm quite comfortable in how you're doing things, how your staff are doing things, but we need to make sure that we're supporting you to do what's best for our community. I just want you to be aware that's at least where we're coming from. Mr. Parliament.
Yeah, just further to that in less than a minute. I think this is a watershed moment for local governments. Anytime a disaster or a tragedy happens, it just seems that local governments start looking inward in their internal processes. I refer back to 2000 when Walkerton had the water crisis. Every municipality in Canada was like, okay, we got to rethink and have a look at our protocols vis-a-vis safety, vis-a-vis transparency, letting folks know that it's not going to happen here. 2017, the Fernie leak at the arena was a watershed moment where municipalities all of a sudden, we better be looking at our practices. And I see this no different. So just want to thank Councilor Palmer for bringing this forward for discussion, and the chief. This is a watershed moment where the local governments have to look inward and make sure this doesn't happen. And that's unfortunately in this business, that's what tragedies do. It wakes us up and reminds us about safety and who we serve. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions, Councilor Lusar?
Thank you, Marshals. Question through to the chief. What kind of training requirements would be needed to bring the one staff you had said that has basic level up to level 2 to do fire inspections? And are there an abundance of people within the province or the country that we could bring in on a contract basis to help deal with this backlog?
Through your worship, there are additional training opportunities to go from basic, would be the local assistance to the fire commissioner. So that'd be a small community, a village, that would be sufficient for that. Fire Inspector 1 is you're getting into the capabilities of doing fire inspections, fire investigations. The Fire Inspector 2 is where you really start to excel in understanding fire code, BC building code, and how alternative processes can be applied and variances and that sort of thing. Standard practice engineering and all those sorts of things. So ultimately, and I guess ideally, the training would be delivered. I can't remember exactly how long it takes, but I would say it's probably 4 to 12 week sort of learning and then practical, developing the practical skills, going out assisted or supervised by a Fire Inspector 2. That would be ultimately and ideally what we would see before our current fire inspector retires, which is either this year or early next. So a succession plan might be the right way to go. Just as a comment, not saying that that's what we're going to do, but that would be potentially a smart move. And then just being out in the community, getting familiar with the structures that are there. First visit's going to take longer than the next second visit. So, did I answer your question?
Just a follow up. I guess, is there fire inspectors that we can bring in from outside the community? And could we put this out to the fire staff that you have right now and offer it as incentive training to get them up to that level 2 to help with this backlog?
Through your worship, yes, there are individuals that can be contracted to come in. I believe there's a number of cities that use a contracted fire inspector rather than maintaining their own. There's not a lot of them, so I don't know if there's a availability concern there as when could they start sort of thing. We still have to identify the buildings that are that tier 1 so that we can focus those efforts in the right areas. Staff, apologies, I am slightly challenged with answering the question without delving into that labor concern that would be in the camera. Personnel. I think with anyone, if there was incentives in the job, I mean, sure. We have a collective agreement that governs the firefighters. We're looking at some refreshments to the job descriptions as we move forward in 2026. We have a collective agreement that is coming for, it is due for negotiation. So those are some of the challenges that I'm faced with in, hitting the floor running after this afternoon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Do you have anything further, Chief? But,
Other than the changes to the policy, I don't know if Ms. Hoyt can remind me if there is a motion on the floor or not. or
there's not a motion on the floor yet, but we have a motion in front of us. So we can
Okay, so would, if council would like to go over the policy now, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
The original fire inspection frequency policy, FD4, as mentioned, was from 2005 and set the different occupancy types and frequencies of inspections. And so the refresh of the policy FD4 frequency of fire inspections will align with the Fire Safety Act from 2024. And this gives us an opportunity for council to recognize the importance of the critical public safety function of regular fire inspections. This policy sets out how the occupancy fire inspections will be prioritized using the risk-based approach, focusing first on buildings of higher life safety risks due to occupant vulnerability, as we've been speaking about, the complexity or the intended use, and lower risk occupancies will be scheduled as resources permit. So it falls in line with the legislation of the BC Fire Safety Act. And without going into a great amount of detail about the high priority, which is tier 1, is that life safety critical.
So Ms. Floyd or Ms. Dellis, I'll just put that on the
Perfect.
screen.
So the buildings with the fire suppression or alarm system deficiencies would be the highest priority focus from prior inspections. Commercial buildings with public access, so those would be the restaurants, the primary licenses, pubs, delis, coffee shops, where a lot of people congregate. There's often decorations and other flammable products applied to the interior for finishes and things like that. Hospitals and healthcare facilities, those are another one where perhaps the occupants are not able to escape on their own. So that would be a higher life risk priority, and make sure that we take steps to absolutely minimize the risk of an event occurring there. Other things to consider are the industrials, the high hazards, the bulk plants, so the fuel stations, all of that. Dry cleaning plants, lumber milling, large residential, senior housing, assisted living, and of course, schools, daycares, and those other educational facilities. And then as resources permit, we will need to make sure that we get into the tier 2s as well without any significant delays. Theaters, churches, community halls, other small residential buildings that are used for commercial purposes. So a residential fourplex may not be inspectable, for example. And finally, followed by the low priority, which are your single-family dwellings when used for short-term rentals. So if it's a private residence and you're just renting to Bob Smith on a monthly, annual basis or whatever, those are not inspectable. But if it's used for short-term rentals, then it would be inspectable. And then the renovations that come along with those that are not affecting life safety systems would be included in that tier 3. And then identifying all those buildings and where they fall into this category.
Any comments?
Mayor Souls, maybe I'll just put the motion on the table, recommendation, so we can go maybe some specifics on that policy.
Yeah.
Recommend to council that the frequency of fire safety inspections policy FD1 2005 be replaced with amendment draft frequency of fire safety inspections policy 2026, and that the implementation and frequency of fire safety inspections be phased, beginning with the high risk occupancies as resources allowed. And I'd like to speak to it if there's a second.
Seconder, Council Lusow. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
There's only a correction, it's FD4, not FD1.
FD4? Okay, we'll change that to FD4. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank
For the
you.
record. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. I just wanted to get it on the table so we can get to the meat of this. Normally you shouldn't be making a motion unless you're like I'm largely in support of the change. The concern that I have is with the end that statement, as resources allowed. I feel as a council policy that's weak, but we're at the committee of the whole level here right now, but it's one that I would be flagging because I think we need to ensure that we have the resources that are needed. I think that's our responsibility. What that looks like, I'm not sure, but and then I do have some questions on the frequency, but I don't need to go there right immediately. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, council? So I'll go back to you, Councilor.
Yeah. So on the frequency, just going through to the fire chief, thank you for that list. I think a lot of it sort of mirrors the new mirrors a lot of the old policy. On some events, worldwide events, not on the Trans-Montana, but on some of the other world events that have happened over the number of years, these public places like theaters, especially when there's over occupancy, has created situations, blocking of exits and that kind of thing. And so it's just one that I saw there that I almost wonder if those public, where there's large volumes of people, the theaters, that kind of thing, you have that on a 2-year schedule. So it was just sort of nitpicking at a level. But that was the only one that I saw. And then also in the, so in the policy itself, where there was this thing as resources permit, that's probably the biggest sort of flag, and maybe that can be fleshed out. Mayor Souls, and then just further to some of the other conversation, I certainly encourage, and I'm sure the fire chief will, is talk to the union, talk to the guys there, because they might have some creative ways on how we can get to a baseline, because of course it's in their interest as well, and they're the boots on the ground, so there might be some ideas that they have. Thank you, Mayor Souls.
Good. Any other comments on the motion on the table? Seeing nothing further, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously, so we'll bring this to council, chief. And then we can go from there once it goes through council. And we can talk about how we start to implement the things that you need. As I've mentioned before, it comes down to political will and dollars. So at some point, we're going to have to say to us, this is what it's going to cost, so that we are cognizant of that fact as we start putting things into place. But I appreciate you addressing this now so that we can move forward. Comments?
Thank you, Worship. Pleased to be able to come back to you with more detailed recommendations. Council like that for the next committee of the whole meeting?
Probably would be good. Do we have capacity at this point for that?
We do, yes.
Yeah, so if you could do that. In the meantime, this is going to have to go to our next council meeting as a recommendation from this group to council. And then if it gets passed there, then that's where we'll be expecting you to be able to, but if you know that you can already present something at our next committee of the whole, then we'd appreciate that, because that's moving quickly.
February 12th.
If not, even the committee of the whole after. Well, we'll put it to you. You can do it February.
I will bring back a more comprehensive report with more information for council.
Appreciate it. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. All right, council, let's move on. We're going to departmental updates. Ms. Floyd, Corporate Services Annual Summary.
Right, sorry, I'm just bringing it up on the screen here. So first off, I want to point out that the communications coordinator has created a template that is going to be consistent across all departments. If council does have any comments on other things they would like to see, or if it's not comprehensive enough, please speak up. I think she did an amazing job, and it does show year over year, which was requested by council in the past. So basically for corporate services, we saw high volume across all activity. There were 22 council meetings, 11 committee of the whole meetings, and then a number of select and standing committee meetings. The data shows steady activity all year, which is great. There's no peaks or valleys. We did see in 2025 an increase in standing committees because of the introduction of the governance committee. I do feel that that committee has been very beneficial to staff as well as council, because we're bringing a lot of recommendations forward to improve policies specifically, and we will be working on terms of reference for the select committees. In terms of bylaws, I really felt like we were busier in terms of developing bylaws. However, the Q4 shows that we made either amendments, created new bylaws, or repealed 9 in Q4 with a total of 26 in 2025. Policies, again, 3 in Q4. Having said that, we have done a lot of formatting, shifting all of the policies into the new standard format. And then when we go over to agreements and contracts, the fourth quarter focused on agreement renewals. We supported the other city departments in legislative review. Under the F Freedom of Information, we processed 4 access requests and 1 privacy inquiry in Q4. And I will now pass it over to Ms. Williams, who will discuss the communications aspect.
Ms. Williams, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Bear with me while I figure out how to share digital communication portion. Can you see that on the screen? Should say digital communications Facebook. Yeah, I won't go into and read every number on your screen right now, but overall, since my time here, the trend is essentially we're trying to focus on quality, not quantity. You'll see on Facebook and on Instagram and on the City Views newsletter, there was a big spike in 2024. And just a reminder that the majority of that is the influence of our emergency communications from the wildfires that were active in 2024. But overall, across the board, yeah, we're doing really well with numbers, an upward trend on followers and engagement. And really successfully this year, we've been really good at using social media to drive traffic to our website and to the Tort Revelstoke platform. Our top posts on Facebook and Instagram this year were the wonderful gift by the Thompson Brooks Hill family of Serenity Park. I'm sure you guys all saw that blow up on Facebook. And for the pump track, people were very, very excited about that. Over on YouTube, we did have a significant reduction in our recorded videos this year for internal reasons. However, general engagement across the board is good, and our subscriber number has carried on increasing. Top video of the year was our live stream about short-term rentals from our development services team. Over on the newsletters in City Views, continuation of quality over quantity. That is giving us continually successful increased engagement rates across the board with an improved open rate and an improved click rate and a reduced bounce rate. Just a reminder, it's a good thing that the bounce rate is going down because that means that we have subscribers who are actually active. Yeah. And then over on Talk Revelstoke, we've seen a huge increase in total visits to the platform. Again, I think we've been very intentional this year about using social media and the City Views newsletter to direct traffic to our project pages. And as you can see, that's been a very successful strategy. Our top project pages of the year are our engineering one, and I want to give a special shout out to Ellen over in engineering. I gave her about a 45-minute training session on Talk Revelstoke and the back end of it, and she just got it instantly and has been managing that page throughout the year. And I think I've had a lot of positive feedback from the community that knowing what construction work is happening is really important to them. So I wanted to give her a special shout out for that. But on top of that, we've got our short-term rental project, our DCC page, and our resort development strategy. These numbers on our side, so we had 18 active projects on Talk Revelstoke over 2025. Yeah, and then over to our website. I just brought back this timeline that I used in the initial project management plan for the website. So, and I've just kind of updated it color-wise to say that we've completed task 1, we've completed task 3. We initially thought that we would organize the back end by an LGMA code, but we decided that that wasn't efficient. We did a trial run of it and it wasn't working. So we've cut that stage out and we're looking for more efficiencies on the back stage, on the back end, sorry. But yeah, this page is really to highlight the cleansing that's been done. It's not pretty. No one knows it's going on. But when you search something on our website, it should become more and more efficient because of this work going down. So as you can see, we've cut down the amount of web pages we have by over 1,000. And the amount of, to put it nicely, clutter in the back end or irrelevant documents or just outdated content has been erased and brought these numbers down significantly. So hopefully over 2026, we will see much more efficient website. And then, yeah, this last slide is just general statistics. I think this will be a lot more useful when the actual redesign of the website has gone through. But just for your reference, I was thinking what would be most interesting for you guys to have an understanding of in terms of the website. And I thought probably knowing what our top pages are, what people are using the website to find out about, and what people are searching in the search bar. So I have included those. And then just a side note update, something I haven't included in the presentation, is at the end of 2025, we have had our first kickoff meeting with the design team to redesign the website. And we've submitted all of our documentation. And I can't tell you the progress that we've already made in 2026. You'll have to wait until the end of this quarter. But thank you very much for your time.
Williams. Council, any questions for corporate admin? Ms. Floyd or Ms. Williams? Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Thank you very much to staff. I like the layout and I like the 3-4 year comparison thing that makes this very, very readable and provides context. So I really like, can go through this really rapidly and get the essence of what's happening. And I know there's a little bit different styles with the different departments, but to me that 4-year comparison, which we're getting closer with that, is I think would be good to see that right across the board. I know some other departments are doing that. The question I have is regarding on the web, the social media stuff. The Recreation Department and Fire Department do their own thing a little bit. And so do these stats capture those, or are they independent of these stats?
Ms. Wood,
I will leave that to Ms. Williams.
Ms. Williams.
I'm delighted that you like this format. Sorry, Councillor Palmer, through the chair, because I've actually spent time creating unique presentation templates in this style per department. So you'll see when PRC present following us that it's in the same format. And with that, I will be speaking again because I will be speaking to the Parks, Recreation and Culture specific social media channels. And then when Fire present, I have included social media stats on there. So to answer your question, these stats are specifically for City of Revelstoke accounts, the main ones. The PRC and the fire services social media accounts will be included in their presentations.
Thank you very much.
All right, good. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, thank you both. Appreciate all the work you're doing behind the scenes to get us this information, and all the work, Ms. Williams, you're doing to kind of set the bar high for all the things we're doing. I'm grateful for that. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to Parks, Recreation and Culture, their fourth quarter report. Ms. Donato, you're up whenever you can get connected.
You have a trick for this? Oh, there we go.
Root strength.
Just break it. That's kind of my style. So bear with me, it's kind of, I feel it kind of confusing presenting the Q4 and the year-end report, so I will do my best. But thanks to Francesca for putting this together and her support in getting everything compiled. She was a huge asset. So for Parks and Rec, 2025 was a big year. This is actually the first year where we start to see the numbers come back to the pre-COVID level of 2019, especially on the aquatic side and the arena side of things. So we'll see that in the fourth quarter, those numbers actually surpassed what we did in 2019. So for facility bookings, we have 5,800 approximately. Our adult and youth programs were all consistent. Big numbers for private swim lessons. So this is the first year we started tracking, or 2024, we started tracking private swim lessons. So we've surpassed our 2024 numbers in 2025. We had over 2,500 hours of ice time, 35 special events, which is on par year to year. We range between 25 and 40 events per year. So we're on par with that. Just over 1,600 hours of field use, and we had some ribbon cutting ceremonies this year, pump track, the museum elevator, and the new Serenity Park space. So with the community center, our Q4 usage seemed to drop slightly, and that could be attributed to some of the bigger corporations chose other locations to host their Christmas parties this year. So we did see a little bit of a drop in December. Other than that, we had our regular occurring bookings. Some of the highlights were the Junior Chef Camp this year, the Trans-Canada BC Enduro Bike Event, the Hospice Bingo was really popular, the annual Ski Swap, federal elections, Avalanche Canada's Staying Alive event, and the community Christmas dinner, along with the Business Excellence Awards. Youth programs were status quo this year. The First Tech Challenge Robotics and the Lego robotics were really popular programs along with the sewing club. And those programs have actually expanded this year. Adult programs, status quo as well, the regular occurring programs. Slight drop in enrollment numbers with these ones. The rec facilities, you'll see the Q4 stats for 2025. Our numbers did surpass in Q4 the 2019 numbers, bringing our overall total for 2025 to 71,000 patrons. And this is consistent with the numbers that we did see in 2019. In terms of the Q4 reports, we started operating on Sundays on December 7th, and we are averaging for the first few Sundays about 180 patrons during that public swim time, with December 28th slightly over 300 at 350 for that Sunday. Those numbers are still lower than they are on Saturdays. It's the same swim time from 12:30 to 5:30, but we're generally busier on a Saturday. We're at capacity with both public swims, and then Sunday we're just ramping up to a bit of a slower start, but that may change during the first quarter of 2026 when we start seeing a lot more activity in the community. I don't know about the ski season this year, but typically that tips our numbers up a bit. On the aquatic center side, I just wanted to highlight this because this is not, we don't really flesh this out in the quarterly reports. There's a lot happening on the aquatic side. Besides the public swims that we operate. We have 3 regular occurring annual events. There's the Aqueduct Swim Meet, which typically happens in the summer, where we see over 300 youth participants along with their families. In the space, we also have the Candy Cane Swim Meet, which happens in the winter time. It's strictly just for the Aqueduct Swim Club, and there's usually about 40 to 50 participants in that one. They also host a challenge week in the summer where they do a variety of different activities at the center, dry land training as well as swimming. And then the high school swim meet. We have 3 regular occurring user groups in the facility, which is the Revelstoke Paddle Association. They offer their spring program at the Aquatic Center after hours. And then we have the Aqueducts and the Special Olympics utilizing the lanes during public swim times. And then the public programs we offer are the regular occurring programs. So we offer both public and private swim lessons for youth and adults. Something new we did in 2025 was host adult swim lessons. And they were actually really popular as well. We also offer the grade 2 and grade 5 swim at school program, which happens in May. And then we offer upper level swim lessons that prepare participants to enter into the National Lifeguard Program. And those are the Bronze, Cross, Star, and Medallion courses. We also were able to offer an in-house swim instructor course. So our aquatic center supervisor is qualified to teach that course so that we can offer courses to have more swim instructors. And then we did a recert, and then we brought in a national lifeguard instructor to do a recertification of all the guards. What's interesting is the instructional hours that our staff spend in the aquatic center, as well as the lifeguard hours. So we have about 160 hours towards advanced courses. Over 3,000 hours go to public swim lessons, over 5,000 hours for private swim lessons, and 54 hours for school lessons. And then their lifeguarding hours on top of that. For the arena, we had the same events taking place this 2025 year with the addition of the Thrash Wrestling event, which was dry floor use of the space and very popular, and they'll be coming back again this year. Ice time hours have increased this quarter. Another stat that I will share with you on the arena is we have a people counter in the arena space, so it counts the number of people that go through the front entrance doors. In 2025, we had over 160,000 people go in and out, with a disclaimer that it can be the same person going in and out 4 or 5 times. So we can't use it for accuracy, but it just does help paint a picture of the traffic volume that goes in and out of the space. We can also track the people going out. The only problem is we have so many other exit doors on the other side that it doesn't capture those doors. It only captures the front door, but it really paints a good picture before an event. You can go down to the level of detail where you can see between 6 and 7 before a Grizzly game, for example, how many people entered the facility. So we're getting, somewhat good numbers just to have a general idea that we are operating within capacity and things like that. But yeah, the traffic pattern was 160,000 for 2025, and in 2024 it was about 114,000. Park space, so we had the field hours for 2015 were pretty much on par with 2024 with the same groups utilizing the fields. We have the Cricket League, the Parks and Rec Slow Pitch League, the NSA, which is another softball league that's more competitive, minor ball, Revelstoke Youth Soccer, RSS soccer team, and men's and adult co-ed soccer team. And this year we had the return of the co-ed Clash soccer tournament. This is a spin-off of the Big Bear Classic tournament. I can't remember the name, but it was years and years ago. There was a rec tournament, and this is kind of a spin-off of that. And it was really well attended and really a good, well-run event. And then we have a summary of the special events that took place this year. Of some highlights were the pump track opening, the Serenity Park grand opening, Luna event, the car show, and Santa Claus parade. And then I'll pass it over to Ms. Williams for the digital communications.
Thank you very much. Hello again. Yeah. Not a whole load to report on for this because I've just focused on the 2025 stats, as it's the first time we're reporting out on the Parks, Recreation and Culture social media channels. But just to help develop an understanding in the future, those are our current numbers. And then, yeah, and if you flick to the Instagram page as well, you can see that the top posts of this year for Parks, Recreation and Culture was the opening of a new park, which makes sense and is very on brand. But yes, they definitely got the most traction through the PRC's account as well as the City of Revelstoke's official Facebook account. Yeah, not too much more to add to that, but I am excited that we're in a position to be able to report out on our City of Revelstoke sort of sub accounts, and stay tuned, more coming.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Now? Council, any questions, comments? Councilor Palmer and Councilor Stevens.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for that, Councilor Palmer. I had a question in regards to the aquatic center and the public swim versus the private swim lessons. We've currently offered 3,345 public swim lessons and 5,190 private swim lessons. And one of the comments that we can hear from members of our community is how quickly the public swim lessons fill up. So looking at these numbers, wouldn't there be justification in adding additional public swim lessons?
Then we would lose public swim times. So it's finding that balance, and it's hours.
Yeah.
So that was hours, not.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's hours each, depending on the level of swim lessons. They're half-hour lessons or 45-minute lessons.
Okay.
And what we're finding is that if people can't get into a public swim time, they may choose to book a private lesson at a suitable time that works for them. And then we also have instructors that are not lifeguards that do instruction on the side and they
Okay.
can be more flexible with their time. And I'm not taking away from the pool supervision when I utilize that employee. They're strictly swim lesson instruction. So that's the difficult part, is balancing public swim time with lesson programs.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. And then just another question, not necessarily related to the aquatic center, but related to the arena. It's really interesting to hear the tracking and the metrics being generated by the usage of that. But I guess one of the things that we're not capturing is how many people we're turning away. Right. So i.e. like, December 31st, it's the Grizzlies game on New Year's Eve. Everybody wants to go. Often tickets are sold out. People are looking all over Facebook. We're not really capturing that data, are we?
No,
No.
because we don't manage that event.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that would be the event organizer. They may be tracking those numbers based on their traffic, how they sell their tickets, different inquiries like that, but we necessarily would not track that event.
Okay, because that'd be helpful to know too. But thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you for the report. That's excellent.
Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Thank you for the report. And again, it's laid out nicely, so that's helpful. Just a little bit further on the instructional hours, that one we don't have the year over year. Again, it'd be sort of kind of,
No,
yeah, and that's okay. I'm just mentioning it.
but we will start doing that.
Yeah,
It's a
good,
good step
perfect.
to
Yeah.
have.
And thank you for the explanation to Councillor Stapenhurst. And then the comment on the special events, Mayor Souls, is they do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Great.
I mean, I don't know, there's 30, 40 things. Yeah, so it's a lot of activity.
So we administer the application process and the review process for it. A lot of the events are hosted by other user groups. The majority of the events are hosted by different user groups and organizations in the community. So they really do a lot of the on-site work. We just do the back end.
You allow it to happen, basically.
Yeah,
without
the
that
review
resource.
process.
So, and I know there's resources that go in that whole coordination and making sure they do their
Yeah.
due diligence. Yeah, thank you very much.
Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Nano. Appreciate all your work and your staff's work in getting everything done. And Ms. Williams, appreciate all the things you're doing from the digital end. All right, council, I'd like to go in camera pursuant to section 9.1 D, G, and K of the community charter. So want to make that motion for me, Councilor Lucia, Councilor Cherry, all in favor? Do you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick clarification regarding going in camera regarding sections D and K. Is this regarding one specific item on the agenda?
I just brought it just in case included those just in case the agenda doesn't get passed as amended. When we go in, that's the what part. Because it covers one thing that's in there that I'm going to ask for.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, we are all in favor? Motion's carried. We'll take a few minute break and come back in camera. When we come back in camera, I want all of council back here, and I want all of staff to leave with the exception of Ms. Floyd, Mr. Parliament, and Ms. Delaselle. Thank you.